Welcome to the MIT IT Innovation Program podcast. This is a repository of insights by thought leaders and practitioners of innovation where they speak about their views, insights, and experiences. Come join us.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Driving Innovations and Leading with Learning. I'm pleased to introduce our guest speaker and innovator, Mr. Sameer Aggarwal, India Head of LinkedIn Learning Solutions. Sameer started off as a .com entrepreneur while in college. His first venture was email as a service. Picture this, most people did not have internet access in those days, and a few had no computer either. He helped manage their email and delivered prints of important communication. Next up, he learned coding for the web, built a few corporate websites, and then partnered with a leading ad agency to create visually appealing experiences. He ended up building the first ecom experience in India, followed it up with some invaluable experiences at Kearney, Genpact and HP, building a diverse set of skills in technology, operations, and sales. Then he came back to his first love, the internet, with an ongoing stint at LinkedIn, which is truly transforming the world. He has been at LinkedIn for more than 6 years, and the experiences just keep getting better. In his current and third role at LinkedIn, he has the privilege to run the learning solutions business in India. His purpose is to help companies transform their skills assembly while helping future-proof the careers of professionals in India. An alumni of Delhi University, he completed his BSc in Mathematics, Computer Science. He is a silver medalist, MBA in Finance, Marketing from Amity Business School. So before we proceed to listen to Sameer, I have a few updates to share about the session and the MIT ID Innovation Program webinar platform. For those who are joining us for the first time today, I'd like to inform you that MIT stands for the 4-decade-old Maharashtra Institute of Technology. ID stands for MIT's 15-year-old Pioneering Institute of Design. MIT ID's one-year innovation program focuses on the 4 pillars of design, business, technology, and humanities. The key features and differentiators of this one-year course are immersions, project-based learning, and humanities. So on behalf of Professor Harshit Desai, head of the innovation program and the core team, we are grateful to be amongst you all hosting this session today. Today's webinar will have our guest speaker share his insights for the first half hour, followed by questions facilitated by me in the latter half hour. Please do read the chat for other important pointers that have been shared. This is our 27th industry interaction this season, and I, Priya Dhawan, head of collaborations, branding, and outreach, for the MIT ID Innovation Program, welcome you all once again to this thoughtfully curated innovation journey. A special mention also for all the hard work behind the scenes by Rakesh Gaur, Enterprise Sales Manager, Talent and Business Intelligence, LinkedIn Pune, for collaborating and making the session happen. So warm welcome once again to all of you and to Sameer. Over to you.
Thank you, Priya. Thank you, Professor Desai. And welcome, everyone. Thank you for taking out time to listen to me. I'm very excited to be talking about today's topic, which is leading with learning, really leveraging learning as a vehicle to drive innovation of self, the companies that you either run or work for, and resultantly drive innovation for the world. So the question now is, how do you really drive innovation through learning? 2 things, and you can see that on my cover slide as well. One is to develop an always be learning mindset. So learning does not really end with school. In fact, it only begins then. And later I'll share how. The second is to really hone your ability to apply what you have learned. If you can do these 2 things, trust me, you've designed your vehicle to drive innovation. Now, as I was thinking about, what I'll speak today, I reflected on a time in my life when I was able to follow these 2 principles. And after some reflection, I did find the perfect story. And pardon my little indulgence here, is something I'm really, really passionate about. So, and Priya sort of, touched upon this. This was during those .com days. And the story behind that story is that I just sort of graduated and I had landed a job with a major IT services company. And I came back home. I shared the news with my dad. Uh, and I've lost my dad now, and I was quite young when I lost him. But those days he was still alive, and my dad had a totally different construct for me. He was like, "Hey, let's do something in the .com space." It was like, "Wait, what? I just got a job." And then we had some discussions. I thought through it, and it all started to make sense. So we started this little company which would design websites and do a bunch of other things, like Priya was also mentioning. So now the question was how. It was really a two-people company at that point of time, and my father was a non-techie, and I supposedly knew programming, right? And there's a reason I say supposedly, because well, yes, I knew programming, but I knew programming in BASIC, in Google, in Fortran, and some of those languages, those archaic languages that you might have heard of. Definitely not, how to design and develop websites. So what did I do? Well, I applied these principles. The first principle, always be learning. Just a couple of weeks back, I thought I was done with whatever I had to learn in this lifetime. But here I was trying to learn web programming all by myself. And the second, arguably even more important, is to be able to quickly apply that learning. Now, we were building this plane as we were flying it. And before I knew it, my father got us our first client, which in retrospect is a great thing, because you can always build stuff, but you always need buyers for what you want to sell. So we had our first client, and their website launch was supposed to be like yesterday. And by the way, I was still trying to learn how to design websites. Well, what happened? We did build that first website, and then hundreds of others. And then a couple of years and a few partnerships later, we were able to build India's first e-commerce website. And whenever I think back of that story, I still feel top of the world, really very elated. Like right now, just narrating the story to you, I just feel like really, really good about myself. But anyway, pardon this indulgence again. Today is not about me. Today is about you, right? So let's begin with a short poll. Let's find out how you're feeling today. You'll get a prompt on your screen. Please let us know how you're feeling today. And I guess everybody can see what I will enter, but yes, I am. Okay, I can't vote, so I will just, and we'll wait for the results to come in. All right, so this is how you guys are feeling. It seems more than 60% of you are either happy or elated. And yeah, it's a Saturday, the weekend is here. Some of you are doing not so good, but we'll see. Hopefully, over the next 35, 40 odd minutes, just listening to a few things that I have to share with you, you might just feel better, or who knows, you might have some plans for Saturday. So let's see. I have about 15, 20 odd minutes to talk. And then, of course, I definitely want to make it very engaging. And of course, we have limitations over this webinar format. So, we can't take audio questions, but, feel free to put your questions in the chat window, and I would love to address as many as I could. The three things that I really want to talk about over the next 15 odd minutes are these. Number one, skills are changing rapidly. I have some data to back it up. It's probably a no-brainer. All of you are aware of it already, but I'll substantiate this with data, which will make the statement even more powerful. Number two, and that's really, really heartening, is the fact that people are learning more than they ever did before. And again, it's all backed with data. And number three, there is more online learning, which is predicted in the times to come. Of course, digital transformation across, whether it's industry, whether it's education, across all sectors was inevitable. However, the whole process, especially because of this COVID situation, has accelerated, and I'll share certain insights around those as well. So let's move on to the first part, which is to illustrate how skills are changing very, very rapidly. Now, here's a number I have, and this is a billion. And in case you're wondering what this number is, I'll tell you in a bit. It's definitely not my bank balance. I wish it was, but it actually is the number of professionals that need reskilling by 2030. A billion professionals. So if you think about it, we're talking about a significant, significant number of people in the world that need reskilling. What that also means is that more than half the core skills that we need to be able to do our jobs well will change by 2030. It's just 10 years from now, which means rapid upskilling and reskilling is extremely, extremely important. And the key point here is that this is the era of rising skills, and skills continue to rise and decline, and newer skills sort of keep coming up. Um, as just to sort of make this point, here are the top rising skills in Asia Pacific as a region. And this is as of now, right? You would see a lot of hard skills here. Of course, there's this whole section around, the softer skills, things like creativity, innovation, very, very important. But these are the top 10 rising skills in APAC. And this list did not look like this just 1 year ago. And this list, I can promise you, will not look the same 1 year from now. Again, like I said before, digital transformation is the key driver for this trend of rising skills, this trend of rapidly changing skills. Now, if you look at this illustration, these are the skill sets that a data scientist had in 2016 versus how they are trending as we are approaching the current times, right? And if you would look at the colored bars, the colored lines that are moving, you would see how some skills were sort of non-existent just 3 or 4 years ago and have gained prominence, as we have come closer to the current times. In fact, this whole point around this whole acceleration happening in terms of the skills that are required. On the right, you would see a chart which talks about the top 10 fastest growing skills in finance as of March 2020. And then within 3 months, by June 2020, this list changed dramatically. And that changed dramatically because, obviously COVID happened to this world. And what that means is that you really need to invest in your learning. You should always be learning because these skills are continuing to change, right? And what's happening, just like I'm recommending to each one of you, because these skills are changing so rapidly, people are learning more than ever before. Now, we picked some data from LinkedIn Learning, which is LinkedIn's learning platform. We have 695 million members across the world. So this is sort of, data from that number. And this chart is specific to India. We saw a surge of more than 250% post-COVID in terms of the learning hours on our platform. And just to make this even more real for you, because plus 259% could mean anything, right? Just to put an absolute number here, in 2 months, we saw an additional 450 years. You heard it right, 450 years of additional learning happened just in the past couple of months post-COVID. And I'm talking about additional learning that used to happen earlier versus what happens now. And it's not as if people are learning only on LinkedIn Learning. There are a lot of other platforms as well. And a lot of these platforms are seeing similar surges. Now, the second cut we took was who is really learning, because we wanted to see there's certain segments of professionals or students who are learning more, or is it really across? And the takeaway here is that it's really across. So right from Gen Zs, we stopped talking about millennials, and of course, people like me in the Gen X or baby boomers, everyone is sort of learning. So Gen Z, job seekers, students, managers, CXOs, everybody's learning, and everybody's learning quite a lot more than what they were learning before. What are they learning? Well, of course, you saw a chart which was around the top 10 skills in Asia Pacific. And of course, it doesn't look very different globally as well. But there's a lot of interest now in newer topics, in this post-COVID environment. So this post-COVID environment, because of work from home, it's leading to a lot of stress. A lot of people are learning about how to manage their anxiety better, how to work more effectively virtually. Use tools like Zoom, the tool that we're using right now. It just feels like second nature today, but I guess it was sort of different 3 months ago. And these are the kind of skills that people are building on the platform. Now, I want to end this stream by just talking about what does this mean for various people, right? So I know there are certain business leaders on this call as well. And for business leaders, it's very, very critical to know where your industry and where your competition is headed. Look, there is no playbook around how to pivot post-COVID. One thing is clear though, that businesses need to pivot. And the more time you spend learning yourself and trying to understand where the industry is headed, what your competition is doing, especially in terms of managing their skills assembly and their skills inventory, the better poised you will be to be able to successfully pivot your business. For talent professionals, people who are in the business of either hiring people or taking care of them, what it means is that you need to really focus on developing your existing talent today, because that your workforce, the construct of your workforce is going to change dramatically in the times to come. And we used to see changes in years. Now we see those changes in months, and I sort of illustrated that on a previous slide. So it's very, very important that you focus on developing your existing talent. And then for working professionals, for a majority of people on this call, what it really means is that we need to be engaging in continuous learning. And it's learning. Remember, learning is not a one-time event. Learning is something which needs to happen pretty much on an everyday basis. It's almost like exercise. You can't be exercising 1 month and not exercise for 11 months, right? It's good to be exercising every day, at least 4 or 5 times a week. And the same goes for learning. So that's what I have to say. Let's see what you guys think. How much time do you spend on learning per week? I think I had a minor drop. Okay. All right. So these are the poll results. 2 hours and above, 60%. Wow. And 1 to 2 hours, 26%. So that's really, really heartening to see, actually. It seems that more than 85% of you are actually spending a lot of time learning. I think that's critical. It only goes on to show the importance of guys are learning more than ever before. Next up, more online learning is predicted, right? Not just for students, but for working professionals as well. Earlier, there was a lot of focus on instructor-led trainings, within workplaces and so on. But, COVID has changed all of that. Digital transformation, like I said before, was inevitable. It was beginning to happen, and it's only getting accelerated. And let's see how. Here are 3 reasons. Number one, you saw how employees are trying to adapt to this new situation where they were learning on anxiety management, how to use virtual tools more effectively, so on and so forth. Right? So essentially, they're trying to be more productive and adapt to this new normal. right? So that's the first reason why online learning is on the rise. The second thing is that, we all know how skills are changing so rapidly, and therefore are investing a lot of time. This group spends, more than 2 hours per week, just learning newer things. And, that sort of remains the trend across the globe. And therefore, online learning is on the rise as well, because that's the only medium which is available today. And three, we are seeing a lot of surge in social learning, right? So there's a lot of curation of content that is happening at the workplaces, in educational institutions, and that surge has really moved the focus away from instructor-led training to online. And uh, we spoke about this a little bit, but here are some numbers to sort of corroborate that fact. A lot of people, not surprisingly, are working remotely today. And a lot of us, believe that this is really more like a permanent shift. So which means that, a permanent work from home sort of a setup might just become a reality. You keep hearing of major IT services companies like TCS, um, Infosys, really talk about how they're going to sort of pivot to that model. And, that obviously, is a trend that we're seeing. But what we're also seeing is that employees are still concerned about their productivity, right? So how is it that I stay as productive as I was when I used to go to a physical office, right? So clearly there is some help, which people need. And to help their employees, enterprises are really pivoting to digital, right? So here are some numbers for you. Most L&D professionals, more than 60% of L&D professionals are expecting to spend less on instructor-led training. 66% of L&D professionals are expected to spend more on virtual instructor-led training, and 60% of L&D professionals are expected to spend more on online learning. And everybody realizes that this trend is here to continue. We also spoke about social learning, and we see a lot of traction on our platform, on that aspect as well. So a lot of people joining learning groups. There's a lot of course sharing which is happening. So hey, I like something, and you work in a similar domain, you have a similar skill set, or you have a similar stream that you are studying in. There's a lot of course sharing which is happening. A lot of Q&A, traction also happening. More than 2x. So I mean, net, a lot of surge in social learning, and really to really relevant for you. But the one thing I would urge each one of you to take away from this session, I would hope that each one of you takes away from this session, is the fact that learning will really help you prepare for the new world of work. So, let's ask you this last question and we'll move into Q&A. What do you like most about online learning? And then, hopefully that'll give some cues to some other people to ask their questions. Let's see. This is going to be interesting. All of the above, 52%. That's great. And that was my answer too, as many of you might have noticed on my screen. Short videos, absolutely. And we're seeing this trend, especially in millennials and Gen Zs, where nobody really has the time to go through a very in-depth sort of content. What's called MOOC in the uh, language of online learning on the go, absolutely, and access to global instructors. So yeah, absolutely. And the thing that I can relate with is that I was very concerned about my exercise regimen, when this whole work from home situation happened. And for the first 1 month, I was wondering what to do because I just couldn't go to the gym. But then, I also experienced online exercising, and PureFit, for example, is doing a fantastic job, with their app where they have a lot of these online exercise classes which are happening, this personal training also happening, so on and so forth. And what I realized was that, it's just that mindset change. I didn't realize that exercising was possible virtually. And, now I've been doing it and been really enjoying it. And the same goes for learning. So absolutely fantastic. Let's, that's all I had to share as a monologue. I would look forward to, uh, you know, get into some questions now. Stop sharing my screen. Priya, if you could please moderate now.
Thank you so much, Samir. I think fantastic quick glimpse into the world of LinkedIn and LinkedIn learning as well. And I'm sure as we move along and the questions roll out, we'll get to hear a bit more about them from you. So, since I couldn't answer the first poll question, I think my input is elated. So thank you so much for this session. And, a lot of youngsters out here who are still very happy with, let's say, spending time on Instagram. At times, I personally feel that I need to actually, let them know that, how LinkedIn is important on the career front, on actually the professional development front. So to that aspect, and again, circling back to your journey, when did you first learn about LinkedIn, as a professional networking platform? Maybe let's borrow from your life and help them understand the importance of, possibly opening up a LinkedIn account soon enough, if they haven't already.
Sure, thanks for asking this question. And, this is one of those moments when I'm like, ouch, wish I was a little younger. But I did start my professional journey, before LinkedIn actually came up as a professional network. So LinkedIn came up in 2003. I'd already sort of started working before that. But I did create my account pretty much around the same time, the site opened up. And of course, and obviously I didn't work with LinkedIn at that point of time. So I had an account since 2004. So yeah, it's been a long journey. And, LinkedIn is, by the way, not just about learning. LinkedIn, uh, first up, is a professional network. LinkedIn really helps you do two or three things. One is to have your professional identity. Today, more than ever, having that digital identity is very, very important. Right? So that's reason number one why you should create a LinkedIn profile if you don't already have one. Number two is your ability to connect and really build that network. Um, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this concept of network divide, and whatever it is that you can do to bridge that network divide, and really create more opportunities for you by virtue of the network that you have. I think that's reason number two for you to create a LinkedIn profile. And number three, you obviously get access to all the learning that we provide, which is also critical. And the good thing about LinkedIn is that, because LinkedIn has a lot of information um, about all its members, so 695 million members, and we know where they studied, we know what jobs they've done in the past, what job they currently do, what skills they possess, and so forth. It really helps us uh, create some sort of an affinity analysis, if you will, saying that, hey, if you aspire to be the head of sales somewhere, here's the path you could take. Or if you aspire to be the CEO of a startup, here's what you could be doing. And if you aspire to be a data scientist, here are the skills that you could develop, and here are the courses that are available. So a longish answer, but I really think in today's day and age, very, very important to begin by having a LinkedIn profile and then experience.
Thanks, Amir. Then there was also a certain phase, right, when, let's say, people are just not utilizing LinkedIn to its optimum potential. A lot of people just went ahead and I think created profiles, but then they didn't really kind of do much about it until, let's say, this entire, I would say, content started flowing out from too many LinkedIn members. And I think that's when it really started churning. I think this was maybe about 5 to 6 years ago. This was in the pre-COVID world, right?
Right.
And now post-COVID world also, again, there's been an overdrive. Can you sort of give us a quick glimpse into what was engagement on LinkedIn like in the pre-COVID world and now in the current COVID scenario as well?
Absolutely. Look, as far as there are two or three aspects of engagement. The first aspect is how many members are getting on the platform, on a daily basis, or we've one stat which we've been sharing for a while now. So for the past 7 odd years, we've added 2 new members every second. And you're absolutely right, Priya. It takes a little bit of time for that virality to happen, right? And all of you are familiar with, how social media really works. You need that critical mass before it sort of becomes omnipresent, right? So globally, we've of course been, adding 2 new members every second. In India also, especially like you rightly said, the past 5 to 6 years, we've really broken into segments that we did not before. What we did not have 5 or 6 years back, and I also talk about post-COVID, which was your final question. What we did not have 5 or 6 years ago was learning content. So, we could help you network, could help you create your identity. We could also help you what kind of skills you need to build, but we were not really providing our members with the actual content that will help them build those skills. And that's when we acquired Lynda, which is the oldest e-learning company in the world, to really, complete that spectrum for our members, which is like, hey, we won't just tell you, what sort of skills you need and how to find jobs which will require those skills, but we'll also help you acquire those skills. And once we did that, we saw a lot of traction from across segments, especially students and early career professionals, because generally even for the past 7 8 years, LinkedIn was very popular amongst mid to senior professionals, but not so much with students and early stage professionals. But now we're beginning to see that shift happen because of the reasons that I described. Lastly, when it comes to pre and post COVID, I did share one of those stats, which is very, very exciting, which is that more and more people are learning today. Of course, it started off, more as an adaptation sort of a strategy. And we all saw how reskilling is very, very important, how skills are changing so rapidly. So in India alone, we saw a 259% increase in the number of learning hours, on our platform. And that's huge. And we are seeing it across. We're seeing it for CXOs. We're seeing it for students. We're seeing it for job seekers. We're seeing it. So absolutely, we were already on that path where, there was more and more happening on this platform for all, all types of professions. And that process just got accelerated post-COVID.
So true. And I think for the entrepreneurs out here, maybe a quick takeaway would be that, nothing happens overnight. It's taken, 16, almost 17 years for LinkedIn, and also for all the path-breaking work that's already being done in the background. I think Lynda was already acquired some time back, but it was just like about being in the right place, right time. That imagine everybody started, working remotely, and LinkedIn Learning has really been one of those, I think, blessings, I should say, to the professional world for being able to, upskill themselves and keep moving on in the new normal, so to say.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I guess just like keep innovating is what they need to, I think, look at and kind of keep doing the groundwork. And yes, the right time will come in. So we've got about a couple of questions more. Deepak Mundada would like to know, what are the opportunities for trainers on LinkedIn Learning platform?
Sure. Thank you, Deepak, for the question. Well, of course, we thrive on getting trainers from the industry to provide relevant content. Anybody can apply to be an instructor. If you go to LinkedIn Learning, there is a hyperlink there which says apply to be an instructor. There are a bunch of questions we'll ask you, which will be reviewed by our editorial team. Of course, as LinkedIn Learning, we only get experts to create content or to become a trainer/instructor on LinkedIn Learning. So, that is definitely, one key criteria. The other also is alignment with what our content strategy is. So I spoke about, how we have these billions of data points which are informing us of the trending skills or the skills that will be relevant for the future. So generally speaking, we get trainers or instructors in the areas that we predict will be the most in demand for the future.
Sure. Thank you, Samir.
Sure.
Again, in the line of a query from another trainer, possibly, is Archana's share, which is, thank you for sharing this data. I'm a design researcher and I've been teaching interdisciplinary courses online for past 6 years. I completely agree with you about online learning. However, I've noticed many instructors who are forced to shift to online because of the pandemic don't know how to teach online. How does LinkedIn train its partner instructors to teach online? And I think it is pretty much, you may want to continue in line with what you were just mentioning to Deepak on the same.
Right. And, specifically around how does LinkedIn train its partner instructors to be more effective? By the way, it's a great question. I'm a father of an 8-year-old, and, her school has shifted virtually, right? And I'm seeing the struggle her teachers are going through. So clearly, being able to train effectively virtually is a new skill that all teachers or trainers or instructors need to learn. So couldn't agree more with the need for that. Now, what are we doing about it? Now, by the way, the good news is that we were always a digital platform, right? So we have a studio, a production studio, was the second largest in the world, second only to Hollywood. This is in California. And we would fly our instructors there and, those courses would be produced. Now, what has changed after COVID? Well, obviously people can't fly to California, right? And production studio obviously is also not operational. So we very quickly mastered how to be able to, create that content just on virtual platforms like Zoom. We were able to do that, just virtually as equally well as we were able to with our production studio. So there's a lot of research that has happened around, how to record that video content. So hope that answers that question.
Yes, Amir, thank you.
Sure. And in fact, there was a second part to Archana's question as well. I'm seeing the chat window. Would you like me to answer that, or do you want to club it with
Yes,
some other?
please go ahead. I was just about to share the same.
Sure. Okay.
I was just breaking it into 2 parts.
Right.
Yeah.
So the second question that Archana has is, how do I see LinkedIn Learning in comparison to other learning sites in terms of offering employable skills? And employable skills is really the key. And the way we differentiate really is that our focus is on application of skills, right? So the place that we see ourselves in is to be a perfect supplement to formal education, not a substitute, right? So essentially, it's on-the-job learning. You want to get better at your job, or you want to land, make a pivot in your career, and develop some new skill. You're quickly able to apply that, and that's why we really differentiate. Number 2 is the fact that we only bring experts in their field to be instructors. A lot of our competitors actually hire professional actors to conduct these courses. We really don't believe that creates an authentic learning experience. We believe that an expert can articulate concepts in a much better way. So that is really our second big differentiator. The third is that entire social experience. Learning always is a push and pull, right? And because people are so familiar with LinkedIn.com, we see more than 100 million members visit our website every day. It's one of the top 10 websites globally, and people sort of go pretty much every day. We're able to provide those social nudges. So for example, you could say, hey, your buddy just completed this course, would you like to do this course as well? Or hey, this person landed a new job by doing some of these courses, would you like to acquire their skills, on and so forth. So this entire social experience that we are able to create is something that nobody else in the world can do, and therefore we differentiate really. So I'm not really touching upon how specifically we might compete with, say, a Coursera or a Skillsoft or a Udemy or a whatever, but at a high level, I've shared how we believe we differentiate.
Sure. Thank you, Samir. So for people who know that, yes, engaging with good content on LinkedIn is definitely a plus point in strengthening your network. there's always this question about, how to manage the algorithms. So if you could throw some light on the same, that, how does one align with the algorithm of LinkedIn to maximize opportunities? This question is by Mr. Suhas Dalvi.
So first of all, thank you for this question. Now, here's the thing. One way to look at this is, how do I do the search engine optimization, right? So Google is a search engine. As a marketer, you obviously need to optimize that search engine so that you have better chances um, of getting in front of your target group, right? Now, the way I would um, advise all of you to leverage LinkedIn is to just be your authentic self. The idea is not to come in top of a search result somewhere, right? And that might only be applicable when you're looking for a job, not necessarily, in terms of your ability to connect to the right people, consume the right amount of learning. And I can touch upon how to find the best job as well. But it really starts with doing the basics right. So number one is to really have a compelling LinkedIn profile. And there are various tips and tricks on it. It could be a separate topic altogether around, how to create a compelling LinkedIn profile, including things like how do you write your summary out, how you sort of communicate in the first person, how do you sound more authentic, so on and so forth, right? So have a compelling profile. Number two is to try and genuinely learn, right? So, a lot of your learning activity, or actually all of your learning activity, will be tracked, and opportunities around the skills that you have acquired will automatically be presented to you because of our artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms and so on, right? So depending on, how updated your LinkedIn profile is, and how, what your peers are doing, LinkedIn, because of its AI and ML, is able to predict, what sort of skills you should be learning more, what sort of networks you should be creating, and what sort of jobs you would be a top candidate at. So just doing some of these things right, some of these basic things right, should do the trick for you.
Sure. Thank you, Samir. We have Dinesh who would like to know that thanks for such a great session. Just wanted to understand plan of user retention on LinkedIn platform by opting other charging methods.
Okay, so
of everybody, how to create a profile on LinkedIn? Yes, currently it is without a cost. And yes, Samir, please carry on.
Right. So thanks for that clarification. So I mean, the first thing is that everyone in the world can create a LinkedIn profile for free, right? Nobody needs to ever pay for it, for the basic LinkedIn profile, right? Now, obviously, once you create a profile, you need to do things with it, right? Network more effectively, learn more effectively, so on and so forth. Now, when it comes to consumers, there is a separate retention strategy. When it comes to enterprises, there's a separate retention strategy. The key is to really be able to drive value for our consumers as well as enterprise customers, right? Now, if there is X dollars I charge, a premium member, right, for a consumer subscription, I need to be able to provide value, right? So can I really help someone find a job? Can I really help someone upskill? And pretty much a blow up of that is what matters for enterprises as well. So for example, MIT and LinkedIn have gotten into an agreement, into a partnership, and the way I could retain MIT as an enterprise customer who's ultimately helping the customers out is by showing value to the end users eventually, right? So MIT has made this investment once, but then how does it really play out in the future would be a function of value that I'm able to drive. So I don't know. I'm trying to understand if the question is more around consumer retention or enterprise retention, but really the underlying theme is that it's a function of how we're able to drive value.
And I would also like to add to Dinesh is that it's really about how each individual devotes how much time towards actually understanding LinkedIn and trying to build a network. And then growing your network, and you also see positively some business, some collaborations coming out of it, then it's great. And if you feel that you reach some sort of a roadblock, so to say, there's always a premium subscription that you can go in for. And then there are multiple other services, of course, and all those details are available on the website for you to reach out to the various stakeholders and learn about the various solutions. I think talent solutions, marketing solutions, etc. But there's a lot that one can learn. It's just that we need to devote time and effort to it. Great. So we move on to the next question. Samuel wanting to know, I think here it's more of a clarification that would be rather than customer service executive in the industry. So I think it's more related to entirely helping them understand the power of LinkedIn right now.
Right. Uh, so, the answer is absolutely yes. Now, LinkedIn has 695 million members, like I mentioned earlier. And we've pretty much, most companies in the world posting jobs on LinkedIn, making sure that there are enough number of jobs available for our members is our number one priority. There are paid jobs, there are free jobs, so on and so forth, but there are hundreds of thousands of jobs which are live at any given point of time, right? And to Priya's point, that's the whole, that's the first reason why somebody should create a compelling LinkedIn profile, because if you have a compelling LinkedIn profile where you put your skills, then our AI algorithm will really match jobs that will suit your profile and will help you really differentiate yourself, with some other applicants, right? Because when you view a job on LinkedIn, LinkedIn will tell you what sort of skills will get you or will create a better chance for you to land that job. And in fact, it'll also tell you what sort of courses you can do on LinkedIn Learning to really get better at those skills. So absolutely, the more time you spend on the platform, the more you'll realize, how powerful it can be. The starting point really is to create your own profile.
Thanks, Amir. We've got a compliment coming in again from Riya Datta. She'd like to say, what a multitude of e-learning and cataloged training programs that LinkedIn has, other than the quality and the quantity of programs as well. So it's wonderful to see that. And what other kinds of innovation would they get to see in the future?
Sure, thanks, Riya, and thanks for asking this question. There are 2 or 3 things that are on our roadmap. And when I say our roadmap, I'm only talking about 6 to 9 months. And of course, it's a very dynamic field. So we definitely strive to be best in class here. The first thing that we're coming up with is what we call a learning experience platform, or an LXP. That is something, which one would expect over 8 or 9 months. So think of it like your uh, uh, Amazon Fire Stick, right? Which helps you integrate content from a variety of sources. What we see in the world of e-learning is that different players have different uh, pluses, so to say, or different strengths, so to say. So we want to make the learning experience platform really agnostic, really leverage the power of LinkedIn to provide that social experience, agnostic of who's providing that content. So that's number one. Number two is really uh, creating a functionality for doing virtual instructor-led training more effectively. So today we do not have that functionality. Today we are an on-demand learning platform where you have pre-recorded videos which could be watched at some point of time. But we know VILT, or virtual instructor-led training, is also something which is going to be crucial for the success of schools, colleges, companies, so on and so forth. So that's another thing that you could expect.
Sure. Thanks, Amir. Another compliment coming in from Swapnil. He says, thanks for the wonderful information. He would also request some guidance on reaching investors using LinkedIn.
Sure, that's a great point. Thanks for that question, Swapnil. And look, there are several cuts that you can create from the kind of information, the kind of data which is available on LinkedIn, right? So we have a tool called Sales Navigator, and what Sales Navigator allows you to do is to do essentially, the kind of work that you're talking about, right? Which is to identify and nurture leads. If you're a sales professional and you want to sell into, a certain industry vertical, Sales Navigator will help you identify those leads. Leads are nothing but people, right? So it'll help you identify people who work in that industry at a certain seniority level, so on and so forth. The same cut, by the way, you can apply for investors. If you want to know who are the senior folks at Sequoia, Axel or wherever it is, you can find that information using LinkedIn. In fact, and the nurturing element is what is even more amazing, which is that, if you want to see what some of these people are doing, what kind of networks they're a part of, who else do they know, do you have a common connect, so on and so forth. So you can really leverage Sales Navigator to do some of those things, and find investors and reach out to investors using LinkedIn as well. And that nurturing element, remember, is critical, because nobody likes cold lead, right? So if you just write to me and say, hey, if I'm an investor, you just reach out to me, without any common connect or without some interesting conversation, it may not work. The Sales Navigator will allow you to do, especially that.
Thanks, Samir. Could you also touch upon the all-star profile for the benefit of our participants? Right. That when they create a LinkedIn profile, how they would realize that, yes, they've done their justice to start out with.
Yep. I mean, the good thing is that there is an algorithm in there which automatically tells you that whether your profile is an all-star profile or not. The 3 or 4 things that are really, really important. Number one is to have a profile picture. And again, there's certain guidelines around what sort of a profile picture you should be putting. So definitely your Instagram picture should be different from your LinkedIn picture. So, a professional picture out there, a good summary, and, there's certain recommendations around, how many lines, how many words, really putting all your professional experiences, your education, your skills. So there are those 3 or 4 things. And by the way, when you create a profile, there is a help link available while you're creating a profile, which will sort of guide you around what an all-star profile looks like.
Sure. Thanks, Amir. I think 2 questions which we'll sort of just combine. And again, this is for somebody who I guess still needs to understand better about how LinkedIn can help them. Is online learning better or internships for a fresher? This is question 1. Question 2 is, as hiring is down, what would be better for a student graduating soon, say 2021? What is better for employability and a general first impression, an internship or an online course on the same topic? My question would be learn and earn at the same time. What would you say, Samir?
Well, absolutely agree. These 2 things shouldn't be looked at as, the ends of a spectrum, right? I think both of them are very, very important. And, remember what I started with. 1 is always be learning, and 2 is also apply that learning, right? So internship is nothing but the application of that learning, and always be learning is consuming this online learning. And what is it that you can do given the current situation? Well, number 1, have watch out for trends on these rising scales. So there's a lot of information which is available publicly from LinkedIn and from a lot of other sources as well, which will talk to you about, what are the skills that are emerging and which will keep you more employable or give you a better chance to land a job. And 2 is to really acquire those skills. And if you can get an internship to back it up.
Sure. Thank you, Samir. I'd like to invite Rakesh. I believe you wanted to share a few words.
No, I'm good, Priya. I guess there was a question in terms of just trying to understand that, what's the stats on LinkedIn in terms of opportunities as compared to other job boards. So I guess I answered that offline saying that on an average globally, every 7 seconds, someone is hired through LinkedIn as a platform. So I've just put that on the chat as well.
Great. Thank you so much. So great, we've reached the end of the webinar time. We'd like to conclude here. For more questions, do reach out to us offline on LinkedIn. I hope a lot of you go ahead and create your profiles today, and please connect with all of us. And a round of thanks to our participants for joining us today, and special thanks to our guest speaker for his time and the value-add takeaways from his journey. Next, I'd like to invite you to the launch of yet another exciting initiative titled Bookmarked. Bookmarked is an intellectually stimulating series of book reading sessions hosted by MIT ID Innovation Program. The virtual book reading sessions will take place every Friday, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Please register in case you haven't yet for bookmarked and related learnings from innovation bestsellers. We encourage you all to connect with us via our social channels to know more about the MIT ID Innovation Program and the upcoming engagements and online courses. For those interested in enrolling for the one-year course, we have last few seats left for the second cohort of this prestigious program that will fast-track your career path. So log on to www.mitidinnovation.com to kickstart your innovation journey with a diverse set of co-innovators. Thank you once again, Sameer. Thank you, Rakesh. Thank you for your time and the insights shared. And speaking for myself, yes, created a LinkedIn profile, and that has actually led to a lot of time and effort being spent in terms of growing a network, which eventually actually brought forward collaborations. So I think definitely everybody should go ahead and spend some time later today on understanding LinkedIn better.
Thank you, Priya, and hopefully everyone found this useful. Bye-bye. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Priya.
Yeah, pleasure.
Thanks,
Stay safe and keep innovating every day.